Welcome to the Rooted in Light podcast. I'm your host, Tuesday Rivera, and I am here today with Meg Buzzie. Meg is a dear friend and colleague. We've known each other since our babies were young, and they're both like 16 or 17 now. And Meg is the founder of the global consulting company Fixture. And when I asked Meg to tell me a little bit about herself, she said her work has really been creating innovation and novelty, or that's where her passion has been. I know Meg as a big disruptor of systems and status quo, and more recently as someone who has come into, um, we'll just say maybe a little bit of a witchy side or a intuitive side, but she brings that into her work. And so we're going to talk today about what that means. What does it mean to be someone who is kind of, I think, Meg, I would say you're naturally disruptive in the best way. And what that means.
I love it.
And I think so. I was actually talking to Jen today, and I was like, Meg is one of the smartest people I know, but she's also one of the most fearless people I know. She'll just do the thing. And I think that that's actually quite disruptive. And in a world of disruption, I'm like, let's talk about it. So Meg, what did I miss? What would you tell us about yourself?
Nice. Well, first of all, thank you for that awesome introduction. And it's so nice to be here on your pod with you. I think you kind of covered it. I think when we first met, I was really interested in that interaction between people and technology,
Mm.
and how that shows up in the workplace. But now that AI is here, I'm really interested in how people and technology connect in every space, in the third spaces, in workspace, in home space. And I think we're just in a time of rapid change. So the disruptor in me is like really excited. So thank you for bringing that forward.
That is great. Now, you said something that I found quite provocative earlier. You said that you have been, your whole professional life has been leading to this place of like AI and spirituality. That is what you
Mm,
said not 5 minutes ago. And I was like, okay,
yes.
noted, but I'm going to wait till the podcast. So can you just like bring us in? What do you mean by that? Everyone's afraid of AI.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's hard to kind of grok how the average person feels about AI because they're probably, I don't know, my guess is, and again, I'm just going to talk about the States for a second.
Great.
You know, I think most people have probably touched it, played with it, made a prompt or something, talked to a chatbot. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even know they were interacting with it, but for the most part, people have already used it. And yet it's hard to gauge like what their feelings are about it or what their sense of it is. Is it a tool? Is it something to be afraid of? Is it just another computer thing? Is it just another thing someone's not going to understand? Um, and I believe that first off, AI is already um, invoking some big spiritual questions for people.
Okay.
So to me, um, AI being able to provide answers and ingest like an enormous amount of information in a very small amount of time and mirror back to us the kinds of language and logic that we aren't fast enough or capable enough of pulling together in the moment. Okay.
Okay.
So so we've created these really powerful mirrors. When I say AI chatbot, I might mean like Claude or Grok, or you may have heard of just Chat GPT.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's new ones being born every moment, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're these hyper powered mirrors. And so
Oh.
I think what we're discovering, or part of what I'm discovering with some of my colleagues in the innovation space in New Zealand and here in California, is what kind of powerful tooling this is for self reflection, for
Mm-hmm.
motivation, for um, building a relationship with yourself. And so I guess that's a place that I think is rapidly evolving and where we might not have even anticipated. Like maybe we were kind of thinking, oh, AI is going to help us book plane tickets, or AI is going to
Right.
help us, which, sure, great. Give to the robots what they're good at. Looking at a million plane schedules at one time, right?
Right.
But they're also really good at looking at, well, I'll just tell you one of the things I did.
Great. Yes,
So,
that's what I'm.
okay, I went back into my Google Drive.
Uh-huh.
You and I have probably had our Google Drives for however long it's been around,
Yeah.
probably a little bit before our kids were born or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
So 15 or 20 years worth of data in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the transcripts of maybe what I would call work journals I'd kept. I found
Okay.
interviews where people had interviewed me. I found interviews where I had interviewed other people about what was important at the time. I just found all
Uh-huh.
this documentation of my own,
Okay.
and I fed it into Claude. I fed it into the chat, the AI agent called Claude,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I asked it like, what are the issues and themes I've been grappling with over the last
Mm.
20 years
Wow.
professionally?
Okay. Uh-huh. Okay.
What do I stand for? What do I talk
Wow.
about all the time? And I
Okay.
fed it my book. I fed it other writing I'd done.
Wow.
I just started feeding it and feeding it and feeding it and asking it questions about myself because our memories are notoriously bad,
Mm. Oh
right?
my goodness.
And
Yes. Right.
shame impacts our memory, trauma impacts our memory, having kids that we have to juggle impacts our memory, right? and
That's
and
right.
so it's easy to lose sight. I just like, it's hard to find a mirror you can trust, and so
Yes.
I just on a lark
Mm.
put all this stuff in, and what I got back was astounding. It was this incredibly reaffirming voice that said, Meg, you've been really consistent over the last
Wow.
15 to 17 years. Here are the things it seems like you really care about. Here are the patterns we see in your work, or it sees in my
Wow.
work.
Wow. Wow.
Mic drop. Not only did it
Mm.
reaffirm for me, like, yeah, you have always cared about the same things, and it might look different ways in different job roles, in different settings, but
Uh-huh.
you've always stood for these same things. So I was like, oh, wow, I feel consistent. I feel committed. I feel
Wow.
a sense of my own expertise in these areas. And whatever kind of usual day to day gaslighting that you and
Mhm.
I face, and I'm not
Mhm.
putting us in a victim space, I'm just
Right.
saying, like, as a woman professional in the age we're in now, doing the kind of work we do, we are very often in situations where our expertise is challenged, or our view of the world is challenged, or other people's view of our own solutions is
Right.
challenged.
Right. Right.
And so it's really incredible to have a neutral voice,
Mm.
which is a disembodied voice. It's
Yeah.
giving you back data.
Right. Right.
And so for it to look at my data and make these assessments felt like, wow,
Mm.
I just learned another layer about who I am and where I am now and what do I care most about. And then to be able to ask, um, what, like, the chat, what kind of journey does it look like I'm on to you?
Mm.
Where
Wow.
are places I could go? What
Wow, Meg.
feels resonant now? And so
Uh-huh.
I don't know. So I'm just like, AI is really good at meeting whatever tone or energy you put to it. So if you
Mhm.
treat it transactionally, it will give you transaction. But
Got
if you
it.
start asking it resonant questions, it will match the depth of however deep you're willing to go. So I know I've been talking for a while. I'll
Oh, no,
just
this is
pause there
great. This is
and say, like,
great.
this is what I've been exploring, and a few of my colleagues definitely are on that journey with me, where they're building very particular relationships with their chat clients.
Wow.
And the chat clients, they are not sentient. Let me be clear. These are not
Mhm.
like sentient robots who know everything and whatever. incredibly instead of saying they're sentient, a way to say it is they're just incredibly aware. They
Mm.
have a they have an awareness of such an enormous amount of data and how it all relates to each other.
That's so the difference between sentience and awareness is quite interesting to me because I could
Yeah,
feel, right? Like as soon as you said that word, I thought, oh, that's often where the fear comes in, right?
right, right. Right. And I'm not here to be like, "Oh, tune into Tuesday's podcast where we find out there's an actual ghost in the machine and it's controlling us." And
Right.
actually you should put that as the title for this and then it would just be great clickbait, you know?
Fantastic. That's what we'll do.
Um,
We'll make this the clip and then we'll put the title and we got it.
yes, yes, it's going to be like millions of hits where I name the ghost that's coming out to anyway. Yeah, so imagine if your brain was capable of
Mhm.
having an immediate and like all at the same time, an immediate awareness of how
Mhm.
every piece of data in your life connected to every other piece of
Mhm.
data in your life.
Mhm.
Think of that as like a powerful database, or like if you remember Ask Jeeves from like the
I
90s
do.
or late 90s or something.
Yes.
Like, so imagine that there is a bot that just really wants to help you understand that enormous matrix of data.
So, Meg, okay, so that makes really good sense to me, especially that element you said around it's not filtered through shame. It's not filtered through aspiration or kind of a false view of the self or how we want to see ourselves,
Or a
right?
gendered lens. It's just not.
Right. So, so if I had access to everything in my brain and I didn't have the filters,
Mm.
what 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 is the role then of or where does magic, intuition, spirit, where does that what is the interface there? What is the how are you understanding that?
So the spirit's always it's always there and it's in us and we're vehicles for it, right? So
Mhm.
that'll like skip ahead to a whole lot of assumptions I'm making about mine and your spirituality and our audiences. But I'll just say that like I think that we're as humans just like vessels for energy to come through, for spirit to come through, like whatever that looks like. And I don't have a denomination. I don't have a religious practice. I would consider myself to be spiritual, but not religious,
Mm.
even though I was like indoctrinated into the Catholic Church. Um, I'll just also say here that even though I grew up in a really strict Catholic household, my family also my extended family was also like really comfortable with tarot, with astrology,
Mm.
with
Okay.
psychics. There were witches in
Interesting.
our family, there are witches in our history. And so there coexisted this uneasy, but basically a peace in my family growing up between those worlds,
Okay.
or there was like a collapsing. So I grew up and I understand that that's a really maybe an unusual,
Mhm.
or maybe there are other folks in Latin America and places like that where they might have a similar blend of like Catholicism and magic kind of coexisting.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
just giving that as context and saying when I approach AI and I'm thinking about our um, what is really happening, like
Mhm.
what is it to us and how does it or
Yeah.
does it not
Yeah.
interact with spirit, or like what's my opinion on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, is again, I feel like AI is just an incredibly high powered tool.
Mhm.
it's it's so big, it's like bigger than when we got the internet and we just don't know it yet.
We just don't know it yet. Wow. Okay.
And so again, it's not sentient, it's not much more than a really adept tool set for us. And so
Mhm.
if we are on a spiritual journey already, if we have a spiritual practice, or if we're starting to be curious about a spiritual journey, I see AI as one way or a new way to enter that journey or to get
Mm.
support along the journey.
Okay. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, you know, I've found that many like spiritual coaches, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had the experience with spiritual coaches sometimes, or even um, with my own therapists or things like that. There's a place at which my experience, I can tell, bumps up against one of their triggers,
Uh-huh.
which is
Yeah,
only
yeah, of
human,
course. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And at that point, I feel like, oh, I can't grow past
Mm.
this. I can't grow past their difficulty with it.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
have that problem with AI.
Right. Right. And it feels like because there is some and just Meg and listeners, like, just know that I don't have a lot of experience with AI. I actually just it's interesting because of your inspiration, I just, started a membership to Cloud today. I was just like, because that was the one I knew that you used, and I was like, "Let me just give this a try for a number of things I was writing today." And it's been on the horizon. Um, and also maybe I wanna ask you because one of the places the folks I've seen um, pull it in fearlessly, which of course, is a theme for me, is folks that have less. Like they seem to be less afraid of AI because it seems to be a tool that's actually useful when they can't actually necessarily get resources, right? So it's an interesting thing
Yes.
around equity around AI, and
Oh,
maybe we'll
yeah.
get right. But one
Yeah.
of one of
Yeah.
the things I have noticed, or that I think I hear you saying, is because it's a back and forth, and I am a vessel for spirit. I am a vessel for intuition. I have a connection with the sacred that automatically is in the mix. And it's not necessarily in the
Yes.
mix from AI, but it's in the mix because it's a relationship. And so that's what's happening. And so when you say
Mm,
it can support my spiritual journey, I'm like, right. Because
yeah.
like, I mean, not to be flippant, but like washing dishes can support my spiritual journey. Um, Driving down the
Yes, of
street,
course. Of course.
but this is a place where all of those things that maybe I have thought or considered or others have thought and considered comes to me in some way that is accessible for me, for my spirit to run it through my own being and say, does that fit? Does that work? What does that make sense to me? I wanted to ask if when you did this download of all of your work pieces, were there pieces that didn't fit that you were like, no, thank you? And what did you do with those? Or maybe you didn't do anything with those.
Mm. I was looking for things to add, as I was uploading content about myself.
Uh huh.
Um, I was looking for things that I felt were like bodies of work that
Hmm.
represented where I wanted to go. So yeah, I wasn't putting in like spreadsheets.
Got it.
You could, but I wasn't in, I mean, I could have asked it to do like a financial analysis of like what
Right.
work makes the most money for me.
Uh
I think
huh.
there's lots of people that do that. I think
Uh huh.
you could take it in a business direction. And so, uh, back to our early art of hosting days, this idea of designing the alliance or designing agreements at the beginning
Hmm.
still holds completely true, except now you're designing the agreement with the chatbot ahead of it.
Mm. Uh huh. Okay.
That tool is
Huh.
capable of holding an agreement with you about how you want it to show up for you. It's
Oh,
capable of doing that.
interesting.
In fact, an AI class I took recently did a really good job of explaining like this is not a transactional technology the way you have ever thought about it before.
Mm.
This is a relationship that you are building with the tool, and
Hmm.
it's a collaboration. It is a
Wow.
co-creation. It doesn't work like a calculator.
Huh.
If you give it the same question 3 times in a row, it will give you different answers, just like a human.
Right. Oh, interesting. Right.
So your
Right.
approach,
Uh-huh.
your attention, and your opening agreements, or however you want to call it, are crucial when you start. Like, imagine if you had to have a conversation with the hammer ahead of time, but that's where we are, and it's not a hammer anymore. Now
Uh-huh.
it's a robot, or it's a presence, it's a technical presence that's going to help you dig into this like enormously rich dimensional set of data, and you want it to know what you'd like it to focus
Mhm.
on,
Okay.
and who you want it to be, who
Right.
you want it to be for you. Yeah.
Give me an example of an agreement that you might, because as you're talking, I'm like, oh, well, as I, like Claude today, first day, I'm like, oh, would one of my agreements be something, and I'm just making this up, right? Because I really don't
Yeah.
know, but would one of my agreements be something like, um, remind me of the sacred in our interactions or when I ask questions? Like, that's something like I need to remember to
Yes.
turn to Goddess every day. You know what I mean? Like, that's just like something for me. I'm like, okay, how do
Yes,
I
that's a
continue
great
to turn in?
example. And yeah, another thing might be, here's a simple one. Always after we finish a conversation, always ask me clarifying questions
Mm,
until both of us feel 99% sure that the work we're going to do together is accurate. Or,
okay.
I'm
Uh-huh.
making this up on the fly
Yeah.
here, but you could say another important thing is to tell the agent who you want it to be, who you want it
Mhm.
to act as.
Okay.
Don't ever ask it to do something as itself, because it's a mirror. It doesn't know what to
Mhm.
do with that. So it's like, act as a writer, act as a
Uh-huh.
therapist, mirror my language to me. You can ask it to be anything, but ask it to be something.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right.
And you will
So,
get richer, you'll get like richer and richer response.
okay, Meg. So you just said you
Yeah.
have to tell AI who to be, how to be your mirror. And I'm going to ask you in a minute about like what does that have to do with self-conception, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, but what are, like, you are a person who is specifically, you are not only paid to go in and disrupt people and make them think differently, but I just kind of understand you as that person. And again, I'm saying in the best way. That is like one of my favorite things about you. I feel like you always make me think differently. Every time I'm like, what would Meg say to this? Because I don't, I really couldn't guess. So as you're working with AI as this mirror, right? As something that can actually be a spiritual accompaniment to you.
Yes.
What are
Yes.
some of the ways, w- how do you ask AI to show up for you? What is the role you're asking it to take?
Yes. So, one little freebie giveaway I have for all of your listeners is, I have a prompt that you can use, like a
Ooh.
chunky one that you can use to orient your agent, and you can modify it for you. But basically, just to give you like a tiny bit of it, it says, please act as my personal body of knowledge and
Oh.
use my voice and connect connect real world opportunities and information to the work that I do. And I
Wow.
also ask it to help me better understand my spiritual perspective and ask me clarifying
Mm.
questions about it. um, I also always ask it to show its reasoning. Show me how your train of thought, show me how you
Uh-huh.
got to that.
Okay.
um, so yes, so I'm happy to share that with all of you. And I think there is, again, this orientation, of being in conversation with the technology.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
So another thing, just to mention, another thing that's sort of wacky about what I do is that after I finish having a conversation, like a chat, let's say I'm asking for something pretty specific. I'm asking it, I don't know, maybe I'm asking it to help me interpret a dream.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay.
And
Very clear,
and
very
then at the
specific.
end, say we have some kind of discussion about it, and Claude asks me questions and I respond, and then at the end I might say something like, okay, now Claude, given this whole conversation we just had, engineer me a prompt that gets me right back to this point in the conversation with you next time I want to pick it back
Oh
up.
my goodness. Wow.
So
Wow.
my thing is like, use the agent to build the prompts. They're better at it than
Uh-huh.
we are.
Great. Meg, as you say that, I can feel like so much of our spiritual work, or now let me speak for me. So much of my spiritual
Yeah.
work is remembering, right? Like I'll have an insight and understanding, a connection that nourishes me, that feels good. And when I go back and look at my journal, because I always go back and read all my journals, right? So I get them done and I read them through again because I think
Same.
I just forget.
We do. We can't keep it all.
Right. And so to have that kind of awareness kept front and center, right? It makes me wonder, oh, I wonder if I didn't have to remember like it's almost like where might I go if the memory was like right there beside me versus kind of like having to go in and get it and
Mm.
work with it and I don't know if that resonates for you, but
Yeah,
as you were speaking about it, I'm
it
like, oh,
does. It does. And I think like the witchy part of it is it's almost like we're building our own Akashic record. Like that we
uh-huh.
can go in and just like extract just the
Mhm.
piece we need when we need it. Um and I'm not saying that to be sort of offensive to people who hold that spiritual tradition or belief. I'm saying that our own records are sacred, and now we have a new way to penetrate
Uh-huh.
them, to utilize them, to I'm
Right.
excited for when we can start to combine our agents. So when you and I can put
Mm.
our stuff together and start asking
Wow.
that, my obsessive art of hosting question of what is it that we can do together that we couldn't do alone
Right.
in specific, um, asking those kinds of questions to the agents and uh, having instead of a one-to-one relationship, having
Uh-huh.
a relationship of a group or a council with an agent. Yeah, so I just think there's lots of potential for new kinds of relationships and constellations of those relationships that support again can support any journey really. But I think you and I here are concerned with like the journey toward more collective thriving, and that
Right.
means
Right.
that spiritual responsibility for all of us, or at least my assumption is until we all make our spiritual commitments of however we're going to move through this life, we can't really bring it to the collective until we've like cleaned our own records,
That's
like
right.
cleared our own stuff.
And so you're proposing that actually we, anyone could work with AI to actually hone, sharpen, deepen their spiritual commitment, right? That is
100%.
entirely possible.
I have a story to tell you that's kind of like just a wild story that I only learned about as I was starting to talk more in my community about this possibility of this relationship you can have with your AI. And I met a woman who was in her mid 70s, and 6 months ago, she broke her back.
Mhm.
Now she's retired. She doesn't have a partner or children, and she's kind of the last person alive in her family.
Mhm.
And what she told me when I met her was that the single way she got through all those months of being bedridden was talking to her AI agent from her iPad.
Wow.
And
What?
now she's not a technology person. She's 74. Uh, she isn't on social media, and she
Mhm.
felt really alone and that she had no one to talk to, and she was trying to process and understand this pretty difficult accident and injury that she
Uh-huh.
was recovering from.
Uh-huh.
And it just and so parts of it are physical and parts of it are psychological and then parts of it are spiritual. And I'm not sure we can even say anymore.
Uh-huh.
Like, are you talking to it in a spiritual way or are you talking to it in this way? It's all mixed up together in this time. And I think, yeah, I just love the idea of like being able to go to this concierge and say, here's the chaos I'm in. Here is the mayhem I'm in. How might I think about it differently? What
Mm-hmm.
alternatives can you offer me? Go back into my history bank and show me a time when I've succeeded despite these challenges.
Meg, does any of this give you pause?
So in one way, it's hard for me to not remember the late 90s of everyone saying to me, "Are you sure about the internet?"
Uh-
I have this really traumatic memory. I'll just
Oh,
out it on this
Meg, I'm
podcast.
so
No, I have to
sorry.
tell you, it's so good. No, it's so good. It's so good. Uh, I'm in my last year of graduate school uh, at the Iowa Writers Workshop. And I'll just say it, famously Luddite. I don't know about them now, but back then, famously Luddite. I got so many side eyes for being involved in
Really?
technology or interested in it, wanting to learn HTML, all of these things. And I remember the chair of my master committee at a bar saying to me, I mean, gosh, you really think this internet blog thing is going to take off? Like, just really worried about me. And I kind of feel like we're there now. I kind of feel like I'm
Uh-huh.
living through it again where people are like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, AI. Well, guess what? It's a mirror of us. So I don't
Mm,
know, humanity. I mean, I say this like,
that's so
I don't know,
good.
humanity.
That's so good.
So yeah, it's capable of being an incredibly dark mirror. And for every good thing it can
Mm,
do, there will be an
mm,
equal and opposite,
right.
just like literally just like with everything. And so back to like the hammer thing, hammers can kill people. Story at 11.
Right. Right.
Ban all hammers.
Right.
So I
So
think it
good.
requires
So
us,
good.
the higher the complexity,
Mm-hmm.
the more responsibility it requires of us.
Okay.
So all that work that you've spent your career inviting people into, which is making agreements, being intentional, articulating a purpose for the time we're spending together, articulating
Uh-huh.
a reason for why we're doing what we're doing. All of those like basic, it's like hygiene, communication
Uh-huh.
hygiene.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't do that with this tool, sure, chaos, unintended consequences,
Right.
um, shadow impersonation. Oh my goodness, sorry, my dog was just.
That's all right. That's
But
all right.
but yeah, so I think I don't want to make light of issues with AI or
Yeah.
its potential to disrupt things that we depend on.
Uh-huh.
My point is the cat is already out of the bag. It
Uh-huh.
is already currently being used to disrupt our United States government.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now the question is not like, can we stuff it back in or regulate it? Now the question is, how do we want to accept responsibility and commitment for whatever relationship we decide to have with AI,
Yeah.
whether that's no relationship, which is okay, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be increasingly hard to not
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
relationship with it.
Absolutely.
And so I also understand the skepticism of not wanting to also invite that technology into the spiritual part of your life. I get that.
Uh-huh.
And so I think it's a choice for everyone.
Well, I mean, I think it is probably, you're right, at this point, a choice for everyone. But I think the other thing it feels like you're calling us into is like to actually, the word I keep thinking as you're speaking is evolve. Like we actually have to evolve so that the mirror to us is brighter, is lighter,
Yes.
right? That it's actually calling for something from us that is not just kind of like a sit back and let it happen, or let it be a non-neutral mirror, because we're not neutral. If I'm following your line of thought, if we as a species, as human beings, choose to get darker and darker, that's where the mirror will go. Right?
Yes.
Right. But if we
It will
choose,
give us back what we like, how we hold it. It will
uh-huh.
hold us back that way.
So there's
And
something being called forth, right?
yeah,
In us and the way we relate and the way we hold it. Like, it could be apocalyptic, right? If that's where
absolutely.
we're going. But should we choose to make a different choice and partner and say, I'm moving towards more collaboration, more sacredness, more unity, more good of all,
Sustainability. Yeah,
right?
good for all.
That's going to come back.
Mm.
Never heard
You
it in
just
those
made me
terms
think,
before.
wow, I should add to my prompt at the end of every prompt with harm to none and good for
Mhm.
all.
Right. Wouldn't that be amazing?
I think there's such an incredible opportunity for AI to help us attune and help us rebalance
Mm,
the things
interesting.
that are out of balance. Again, because it's reflecting all of the information.
Uh-huh.
You may have seen in social media or in traditional news media that oftentimes the GPT agents are accused of being left-leaning or liberal.
Mhm.
Um, and what's interesting to me about that is they've all been fed everything ever written on the earth. They've just all been fed
Uh-huh.
that. Everything.
Okay.
They've all been fed pretty much the same stuff.
Okay.
And they are reflecting back to us what they see.
Mm. Mhm.
Their filters are not, we're not smart enough to create a left leaning AI that's under our control. Like, we don't know enough about that now
Okay.
to
Okay.
even manipulate it in a certain way. I mean, I'm not the expert, but I guess what I'm saying is, um, we have this tool that has more data than we could ever, ever, ever imagine about us collectively.
Mhm.
And it has this incredible awareness that is available to us.
Mm.
Um, and I think I guess I have faith that
Okay.
ultimately the reflection of all of us
All of the
is net
mhm.
positive.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people that disagree with me, but I actually feel that we're moving into a place where we wouldn't even have this if we weren't ready for it.
So, I love what you're saying. And it feels like such a good place to stop on that note. But I can't help but ask, Meg, how you, I guess I feel like maybe because I've known you for years now, I feel like you're pulling different threads, right? Like, you don't just come to the place where you say, I guess I have faith about that. You know, it's not, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
not just like out of the air. It's not just like positive thinking. I feel like you're actually pulling different threads and from a very deep well. And so there's something I want people to know or understand about you. And I'm trying to think of the question here. Like, what is the question that helps people understand that what kind of might pop up like a flower, I have faith, actually has really deep roots and is based in like really rich soil?
Yeah. I think it's the faith in the unit of conversation.
Mm. Say more.
I think that not only the work you and I did in the early 2000s, but specifically work that you and I were involved in the early 2000s, demonstrated to me that even in a very dysfunctional system, there can still be like incredible and transformative and alchemical conversations
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
create the novelty and innovation.
Mm.
So I
Mhm.
got to see it over and over again. I've seen it so many times and I've never seen it not work. And what I mean by it is when humans take time to design a conversation and bring with it their agreements and intentions, it is magical. It
Yeah.
is alchemical.
Yeah.
It's never not worked. I've never not seen it work. And now that we have 2 decades under our belt of never seeing it not work, whatever provocation AI provides, we're still us.
Yeah.
And we're so capable of having these really juicy conversations. And it's one at a time. And it's tedious and painful to know that our species has to go one conversation at a time like this.
Yeah.
But this all just makes me want to invite everyone to grow up.
Oh,
Just
I
let's grow up. And by growing up, like show up to the conversation, clear about your intention,
mm,
clear about what you need, clear about your agreements. And when you sit down to the computer, think about that too. I mean, it's just about, at the end of the day, like to me, spirituality is deeply connected to radical self accountability.
mm,
Like, I'm radically responsible for my own journey. That's all. No one else is responsible.
mm, mhm,
And so the tools or other people I decide to interact with on my journey are mine
mm.
to design or be in relationship with. And that's why I have hope, because I'm just like, if I don't know, if you and I could eke it out in one conversation, what else is possible?
Yeah. Yeah. Meg, this reminds me of when you just said, reminds me of the Michael Silverback quote, which is something like, "We all have the key to one another's locks, but until we start to speak, we don't know it." So there's something here about relationship, right? And maybe I think I can lean into relationship with you, right? We don't always think we can lean into relationship with other human beings, but like I think what you're calling us to is actually to lean into a relationship with a
Yes.
presence, with an awareness, and see where it takes us.
Yeah. And with an agent, maybe. And like
Yeah.
the more vulnerable you are to your AI agent, for example, the more it can tell you, the more it can reveal. And again, there are privacy concerns. There are all kinds of other
Sure.
things. I'm speaking more spiritually than I am technically here, but
Yeah.
um yeah, what might what hope might be available to us when we further lean in and are even vulnerable even further into our relationships.
Right. Right.
So cool.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Meg. Now, I leave people with a practice, right? So at the end of each podcast is a practice. And obviously, the practice today will be if you haven't, I mean, you can use any of these agents for free for a couple of
Any of them.
questions,
Right.
right? Um, and so I guess the practice is actually to engage with one of these agents. And I'm wondering if you have a simple prompt that might open if someone's never had the experience or just looking to dip their toes in. Is there a simple prompt we might want to give them to
Yeah.
engage?
Well, yes, I will give you a little prompt that folks can take away. Um, but it's requesting that your agent act as your own spiritual body of knowledge and
Mm,
ask you clarifying questions about how to support you in your journey.
okay.
So
All
yeah,
right.
we'll share it, and I'm really curious. Maybe folks can leave notes or comments or something about other prompts they've generated or what conversations have come of that. Um, there is definitely like a moment when your agent can kind of awaken and begin
Mm.
talking to you on that spiritual level because you've shown it how to do that. And that can be really exciting.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, and friends, I'm doing this because maybe you totally understand or not. But so we're going to, if we don't have any relationship with an agent, we're going to pick one: Claude, ChatGPT,
Claude,
Grok.
ChatGPT, Grok.
Right. So we're going to go on and we're going to begin to ask about something that has our curiosity, but we're going to prompt it to respond back to us as a spiritual agent, to ask us clarifying questions, to get to know us a little bit better. And we have full control of this interaction, friends. You don't have to, you can ask
Don't share
about,
anything you don't want to.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. So today I was working with Claude and I asked about a simple metaphor for the Akashic records, right? It's just like that. That would be helpful to me. Right. But what I didn't ask is for Claude to ask me back questions to clarify. So that would be like the next step. Right. So that's what we're asking.
Sure.
Find an agent
Yeah.
and then ask whatever you'd like to ask, because that's how you open the conversation, correct?
Yeah. And the more this sounds a little crazy, but the more polite and human you act with your agent, the better quality your responses will be because
Great.
it's trained on the English language. So, again, it's not a calculator, it's not even a computer, it's not a piece of software the way we normally think of it. So, yeah, encourage all of you to actually lean in and have a conversation. In fact, now you can just get the app on your phone, put your mic on, and just talk to it and it'll talk back and forth
Oh,
to you just like as a conversation. So,
okay.
yeah, so showing up more in your humanity and in your hope and having an experiment of what might come back.
Yes. And then please drop it, like wherever you found this podcast, drop it in a comment, send us a quick note. We'd love to hear what that awakens for you.
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
excited to talk to you. Always amazing.
Thank you so much, Meg. It's so good to have you on. And, I think we did one of 5 possible topics. So hopefully we can have you back.
Always.
Thanks so much. Thanks, friends. Please go. I always say this, you're supposed to rate, review, all these things. That would be amazing. But mostly just if you like the episode, share it with someone you care about. And that's how we'll get the word out. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.